Hello, everyone. Good morning on the Pacific Standard Time. Today is Thursday, 1st August 2024, and this is Filecoin Core Dev call number 73. Forgive me, I'm trying to let folks in and also facilitate the call. Anyway, we have just one technical presentation and then two updates conversations. One will be led by Jonathan, and then we have NV23 waffle updates happening next week. Fingers crossed, we're all excited. And then NV24 timeline updates that Jennifer and the rest of us will be contributing to. Obviously, if there is anything else that comes up and we have more time, we would examine that and see if we can take additional conversations. Right, so without further ado, I'll hand it over to Jonathan now to discuss.
Hey, can you hear me okay? My server
Yes.
is great. Okay, awesome. Thanks for letting me chat about termination penalties. So to give a little bit more context, I had been chatting with Jenny a few weeks ago about adding more precompiles or support for different methods to interact with built-in actors for the FEVM. And the one that's by far, at least for Glyph, the most important is being able to accurately and cheaply estimate what the termination penalty of a specific miner would be on the network. Now, if for anyone who's familiar with that area of the code, it's quite complicated, and doing that in the sort of the current method of computing termination penalties is, as far as I understand, impossible. And I've been getting a lot of good advice. I kind of picture myself more like a sous chef for Alex North on these efforts. He's much more in the weeds and knowledgeable about what's good and bad and what should be happening for termination penalties and how we can simplify things. So basically, what started out as, hey, can we just add a method for estimating termination penalties? It's kind of it's taken a step further to say how might we actually simplify the termination penalties. And when you think about it, when you analyze the on-chain data, especially in today's sort of Filecoin economical environment, the ways that the termination penalties are computed are both extremely complicated. They're also, I don't think that they're accomplishing anything unusually better by adding so much sophistication. And in adding in all the sophistication that it exists in order to keep track of different states and things of that nature, we end up adding a decent chunk of state to Filecoin. So there seems to be a pretty good opportunity to simplify things. For one, it seems like there's an opportunity to reduce some of the state in Filecoin. And by simplifying, then we can also create constant time methods for estimating the termination penalty of any given miner. And this becomes really, really important for lending protocols. So Glyph is obviously just one of them, but there's many more, and all of them will have similar issues, which is if a DeFi protocol is lending Filecoin to a Filecoin storage provider, and that Filecoin storage provider is using a miner actor with pledged Filecoin as its collateral for borrowing that Filecoin, if you don't have accurate termination penalties, then it becomes quite dangerous. So you need to kind of understand what is the true value of a specific miner. And when you look on chain, the variance of termination penalties as a portion of the pledge on that miner, they vary quite very widely. And so if you look at this link in the bottom of the slide, I made this little repo called Arnold because it's for terminating, but not actually terminating, just estimations. And If anyone's interested in using this, just feel free to send me a message. I can show you how to run it. It's not like a CLI tool or anything. I just kind of scrapped it together, but you can basically plug in an array of miner IDs, and it will print out a CSV that you can import into Google Sheets to look at the various statistics about miners and their termination penalties and percentage of pledge. And in the actual FIP discussion, I've put two miner actors that at least have interacted with Glyph that our systems show are like the two polar opposites and end of the spectrum in terms of like the percentage of termination penalties as a portion of the pledged fill on those miners. And so, yeah, I think in the last 2 weeks, Alex North and I had a good conversation, and there were a couple challenges that we had identified. Basically, one is like, what is the actual methodology that we should be using? I think I have to refresh my memory a little bit on those conversations. I took some notes, but at least from what I felt, the best and simplest thing to do would be to just say, hey, there's like a percentage of the pledge collateral should be like a penalty for terminations, and that should just be constant. And that way I can just look at the balance of a miner and tell you what the termination penalty will be, or I could look at the pledge and tell you that. And this also is quite helpful for miners as well. Like most storage providers on the network don't know how much they have to lose if they decide to leave. So this also makes it easier to analyze from the storage provider perspective, like how to get involved and what are the risks. So the first challenge is, what is the actual simple methodology that we should use? I think the leading candidate, like I just said, is a percentage of the pledged Filecoin. And then from that, you have kind of sub challenges, like what should the percentage actually be? And Alex North has some really interesting data that he scraped that suggested some where some you could put some numbers. And then the last challenge would be, how do you actually upgrade into that system? So without causing some sort of issues, like, do you honor the old sectors? Do you just apply this to new sectors? Do you convert old sectors into the new termination penalty methodology? So yeah, I think that's generally the high level of the sort of appetite for this FIP and where it's been. I think in the last 2 weeks, it's been kind of silent. That's definitely on me. I'm trying to drive this, but I'll keep active on it as well. So yeah, I'll pause there for now.
Great, thank you so much. Are there questions, contributions from anyone else?
I guess it will depend on what the final simpler proposal actually is. I mean, it would be good to understand. So this is kind of changing the economics, and it would be good to understand what that change does, and it depends like what actually the. So I get the point. I get the point now that this way of figuring out this termination fees is too obscure, and maybe this leads to a noisy output. And maybe we come up with a simple formula, and this might be higher or lower termination fee. And like, if it is than some measure than the average termination fee or something. Yeah, I guess when there's a specific proposal, has to be thought about well. Like, okay, so this increases or decreases the average termination fees, and this is the impact of that, which it's not clear to me.
Yeah, 100%. It's hard to critique or anything until we put something more specific out. I think one other thing, I guess, that I've been thinking about is like just going back to the basics and be like, what is the point of termination penalties? And for CC sectors, I really don't know that there is a point. So just kind of ignoring CC sectors for now. That's like talking about real, data sectors. Why, like, the termination penalty should be a number that makes it unattractive for a storage provider to violate their service agreement with a client, so that the client doesn't just lose data. But I think there's some other factors that should be considered as well. So like one is the termination penalty that's enforced by Filecoin, the network, is not the only factor that would sort of contribute to the decision of a storage provider terminating. In fact, it's in the current climate, I think it's probably one of the lower reasons. Like at least in Asia, a lot of storage providers are just getting investments from investors to mine, and if the investors don't like where Filecoin's going, they just take the loss on the sectors and they terminate. If you're an actual storage provider that's creating paid deals, you likely have legal agreements and you have other things in place that if you break those, you'll have a much worse time, in addition to whatever termination penalties that you see. So I think like the termination penalty is it's one aspect of an incentive for a disincentive really to not sort of live up to the agreement that you made. But I think it's simplifying it is going to. I don't think it needs to be super difficult. And I'm not even sure that like replicating the current system makes sense, as even like the only reason that it would is to make sure that any upgrade path isn't like sort of rocking the network in a volatile way. But yeah, you're totally agree. It needs to be fleshed out and something more specific put down.
I just think like maybe these are kind of two different issues to discuss separately. Like one is, so I understand there's valid arguments like, oh, maybe this termination fee is not doing what we needed to do, and there's an argument to lower or eliminate or whatever, but that's separate. So this should, yeah, so one independent issue about simplifying it, and maybe this is something in a way that produces a simple result that is in line with what the average termination fee is now. And then a separate question is like, okay, we know how to make something simple. Do we want it lower or to zero? And that's kind of a separate question. That is not about simplifying.
Yeah, no, and this FIP discussion is definitely more on the simplifying approach. Like, but I think it's helpful to keep in mind like down the road, because if you think like, okay, well, we have some foresight, like maybe zero termination fee CC sectors make sense, then we should definitely, in the way that we simplify, make sure that we keep the optionality open to make those types of changes as well. So I think just having like a general sense is helpful. I think like termination penalties make sense as a concept. It's just making them easier and cheaper and getting rid of a lot of state. Because so I think and what Raul was saying, I agree with as well.
Thanks, John. Did a really great overview of this problem and the things to be considered. And I look forward to like basically the similar thing to what he just said being posted in FIP discussion somewhere as well. Yeah, there's no this is definitely about simplifying. There's no intention to change the magnitude of termination fees. It's just it's impossible to simplify it without changing it for some participants, because the current mechanism means that different participants who onboard at different times experience radically different termination fees. If it wasn't for that property, it would be very easy for us to simplify this calculation and sort of maintain whatever the termination fee is that a marginal miner onboarding a sector today faces. That is easy for us to replicate. The only reason it would change incentives in the short term is that there are some miners with sectors that are a couple of years old who currently face a 4 times larger termination fee for the same sector. And so, I don't think. So we have a choice whether to simplify it for everyone all at once and apply it retrospectively, or only simplify it for the marginal new sectors onboarded. And so if we chose that option of only forward looking, then it would be fairly easy to do it without a transition point that mattered to anyone. But if we do that, we don't get much of the simplification. We don't get to delete any code or state until some years later when those existing sectors expire. So I'm quite keen to explore doing it all at once for everyone. If we can, we don't have to, but I want to explore that. And it would always represent a reduction in termination fee for very old sectors. And I don't think targeting the average termination fee is the right thing to do, because that would sort of double the termination fee that a marginal miner faces. The average today is much higher than the calculation when it's made today. But something that's on the same scale as the calculation that we made today could easily be expressed as a fraction of pledge instead of its current computation. But we can put charts. I can put I've got some scatter plots of the historical termination fees and so on that I can put into discussion after John.
That sounds great. And yeah, I'll keep driving this. We've been a little bit busy on our side, but I think this is it would be a really nice thing to have for any sort of DeFi app that's using miners in their sort of protocol.
Great, thank you. Are there additional thoughts or comments? No. Right. Okay. Oren, Philos, NV23 upgrade updates. Over to you.
Yeah. So just giving a quick update on the NV23 rollout. We are scheduled for upgrading next week on the 6th of August. And all implementation has shipped stable releases. So it looks like we are on track. I just put in a refresher on the FIPS that are included in this NV23 upgrade. And also a deprecation notice that proof commit sectors is being deprecated in this network upgrade. And we have sent out outreach and comps to SPs in Slack and different release notes that they need to finish onboarding deal sectors using non-DDO flow and fully onboard those sectors before updating to the new implementation releases. So if you are in any other channels where there are SPs, please amplify this message so that SPs can have a smooth transition to NV23.
Thanks, Jennifer. You have your hand up.
Yeah. First, huge thanks to Orion and also Big Labs for helping coordinating this upgrade. We're shipping a lot of FIPS this one, so it's not like an easy one. So thank you for all the cat-herding work. I do have a hand on the deprecation notice, on this FIP. I just want to flag the removing deprecating proof commit sector method, the FIP was proposed over 6 months ago, accepted 4 months ago, was a part of being proposed to be a part of the NV23 for more than 3 months. And it was implemented in the protocol and everything. And I think what's missing here is the implementers, where here the adopters will be the miner software implementers. I feel like we did somehow somewhere in the process that those implementers are not aware that the FIP is accepted and will be finalizing the upcoming upgrade, and then they update their software and figure out a smooth transition for their users in time. So basically, I don't think a lot of SP miner software teams has paid attention to what FIPS are being included in the next upgrade and what kind of the work they have to do to support and get their user ready. And I feel like this is a huge risk to the network, and also a huge risk to the search provider who are key stakeholder of the network. And I am curious about whether there's anything that with regarding to the process or whatever can help us, core devs and implementers can work together to mitigate such situations in the future. So extremely curious about, people like Andy's or like, you know, I don't know, Ross like opinion here on like if you have any suggestion on the process.
Andy or Raul, do you have immediate thoughts?
I have nothing I can think about with regards to the specific caution. We can maybe take it offline for me to understand. Maybe if you seek my opinion, for me to understand exactly the cohorts that you're worried about and the kinds of operations that they would be running that would be affected. So that would be great. I do have a question about the soft launch of fast penalty, but maybe we can take that later after we've confirmed that. Nobody else has anything else about this?
Yeah, I think this is kind of a longer discussion in terms of how do we build engagement. I don't have a direct short-term plan for that.
Maybe like we offline and then like rediscuss like in the implementer sync. But I do feel like implementers together like need to have a better coordination so that we can support like networks user. And also like we need to align on our priority with regarding to what we are finalizing and introducing in the upcoming upgrades in general. I feel like there's just like a disagreement or misalignment on what's important here. That's like
I'm seeing the same thing. I don't see any of these helping any of the customers that we've been talking with. Maybe non-interactive POREP, but it's only, it's not even directly usable until we get Sealer ID. So it's kind of just a stepping stone towards a goal. And
sorry, I would have to like interrupt a little bit here. I feel like you are talking about like a very specific group of like users, which are curious miner users, which again, SPs are very important to the network. However, as core devs, as implementers, we also have to make sure the network is scalable, can be stably running, and also other users of the network is builders. So a lot of the things here are useful for the builders or help involving the Filecoin protocol, or like, you know, keep the network like stable. For example, deprecating the proof commit sectors is because we already have other methods to support this functionality. We are trying to remove more work from the cron that the network is subsidizing and potentially will be increasing the validation time of the block time if we keep adding job to the cron. So I feel like we need more engagement also from core dev to understand the value or like the context of like each FIP so that we can then power test together.
right. Because there are 2 FIPs I would like to see on here that are not, but Curio's team is not capable of having the time to build them out ourselves. And so, you know, part of this might be a matter of simply do we have the hours to commit?
Additional thoughts on this before we move on? But I guess it's one of those conversations that we can continue to discuss.
I would love to hear Ross' question on F3.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, Raul.
Thanks. So the question, sorry if this has been answered in previous editions of this call. I might have not been present, but I would like to really understand what is the setup to monitor the performance of fast penalty in the soft launch or the shadow launch, to monitor potential faults, to diagnose those. Is there a dashboard that we're planning to expose publicly so that we can monitor the health and performance of this? And specifically, what are the acceptance criteria to promote fast finality to the definitive finality gadget in NV24 potentially?
Marcy, can you take this one?
Rahul, we've set up a dashboard which is connected to a set of nodes that we control. So based on those, we measure things like the rate of broadcast, message broadcast, the rate of rebroadcast. We've already caught a couple of bugs which are fixed. The things that we are measuring concretely in the wider network is basically inferring the state of the network by listening to the gossip messages that are going around, and to assert that a node without a power would reach the same decision that the real nodes have reached a decision. The other thing that we're measuring is basically divergence between the EC and the fast finality. Sorry, the tipset that is finalized by fast finality. So long story short, there's no specific plan to make a public dashboard of this, but we can definitely review that. I can go through specific metrics that you're looking for offline if that's helpful. But does that answer your question, Aaron?
Yeah, that's great. It's great that we have this asset. I think it would be super valuable to expose it to the public so that we can all follow. I mean, this is a very exciting development for the Filecoin network in general, right? So I think there's like everybody is kind of like rooting for this to go actually live in NV24. So it would be great for the community to have a place where they can be a spectator of kind of like what's going on. So would really double click on that public dashboard. And then like the second part of the question is, do we have a set of criteria? It's hard criteria given the potential side effects of kind of like, you know, a or decision of promoting something that might have not been ready to be promoted in NV24? Do we have like a set of predefined criteria that we're looking to assess before promoting to an actual finality gadget?
Sure. So there's a set of basic validation rules that we want to see if it actually happens in the live network. We have done extensive simulations to assert that those conditions are met. So, for example, things like censorship resistance is one of them that we really care about. But obviously, we have also set up infrastructure to monitor whether that is respected in the real world network, as well as introducing scenarios that then allows us to manipulate the behavior of a live network to then, in a very passive way, as the name suggests, the passive testing thing, in a very passive way, confirm that it actually happens in the live network. So in terms of concrete metrics, again, we can go offline and talk about concrete ones, but the main thing for us is to make sure that the finality doesn't diverge, and then the fundamental assumptions that you make about effectiveness of finality are respected, given the assumptions about the network. For example, you know,
I think it would
quorum,
be I think it would be great to formalize a set of quantitative metrics and particular thresholds that we're looking to meet, but for us to for core devs to actually accept the promotion, right? So if you say there's kind of like a rate of like divergence is below a specific amount, you know, so it's kind of like a set of hard acceptance criteria, I think, and predefining those, because, you know, once the thing goes live, then you might end up like tolerating different things that you wouldn't have before. Like you take a more critical dive before the thing is actually live, right? And like the things you want to see before you promote it. So I think it would be useful to do that exercise. And I'm super happy to collaborate here. Another reason why this exercise might be useful is because other stakeholders that actually have, you know, stake at play in terms of, and I'm talking about exchanges and like liquidity providers and things like that, and bridges and so on, that we might look to convince to move towards this finality mechanism going forward. Would probably look at kind of like the quality assessment criteria here and the confidence that the community has in this new mechanism that is novel, right? That is going to be introduced in the Filecoin network. So I'm looking also to build up enough data, right, of confidence along the way, so that argument for migration to this that will benefit everybody, because suddenly you'll see kind of like a a deposit in an exchange not needing to go through 900 epochs before it's withdrawable, for example, right? It would just go through 2 or 3 epochs or whatever the finality like is looking like at that time. So definitely looking that's another reason.
That makes sense. Thanks, Jennifer has a hand.
A couple things to add. First is like in the Lotus release note, or like the network announcement, we did have a link to a Lotus discussion. We were planning and we'll be adding more information starting next week when we start do the soft like launching and activation testing. Like we're gonna do like slowly adding more nodes that participate in F3 and monitor how the things works. Folks can just like follow that discussion as well, where we will be telling the community, okay, we are now putting 15 nodes in participating in F3, and this is like the result we're getting. If we catch any bugs or not, those sort of information can be found in that discussion, which hopefully we will be including a screenshot of like the dashboard that we have that is monitoring, for example, how fast we diverges, or like the memory usage, the CPU usage, validation, and things like that. The second thing I was going to mention is that this is definitely very exciting, and we're very excited to work with like the Forest team, in which they're about to be implementing implementation in Rust as well, and we're looking forward to do the interrupt testing as well, just to see how the things goes. I think on the matrix side of the things, like the acceptance criteria, I think that's a very good flag. It will be really useful for like core devs here to also help giving some like peer feedback on what kind of the data points that we need to make the FIP to be accepted, right? So right now, the FIP is in last call. So if you have anything that you want to add to the test case as like, hey, these should be the things to be considered, this is the perfect time for you to do that. So that we have those like things listed in the FIP before it's like accepted and finalized. So please do that if that is something that you care and have like good ideas about. Last but not least, I also do think Raul brought a good point on the ecosystem impact. How can we realize that? So I have been in discussion with a bunch of biz staff folks at Filecoin, where we are talking about how can you make sure exchangers or like bridges or DEX can be leveraging fast finality as soon as it actually launches. And Lotus likely will be introducing a new set of APIs that differentiates between the finalized F3 head versus a pending blocks, which is like from the EC. So we are still designing that. We're trying to collect user feedback from exchanges and bridges as well to design those set of the APIs. So like I am personally like very excited about that. If you guys have any ideas about how the APIs could work, please I will share the discussion in the FIPS or the implementer channels, and welcome to having feedbacks from you guys. One thing in particular that I am excited about is like we can finally make the height epoch a useful thing for Filecoin, because before the height doesn't really match with the tip set until like 900 epochs, but now because finality is finality, we can actually like simplify our APIs to maybe not only be able to accept tip set keys, but also can just give in an epoch, and then we can execute the state and getting the messages for that certain height that is confirmed to be finalized. And I think these are the changes that will bring great user experience like improvement for token holders and builders. I hope that answers some of your questions as well, Raul.
Yeah, that's super useful. Thank you. I think it's great that we're thinking about these APIs, and I'm happy to help as well on that front.
Awesome. Back to you, Jennifer, for NV24.
Oh, Okay, so Aurelian is actually the one that does the most work here, but I guess like I can quickly talk through this. But again, thanks Aurelian. On Tuesday's like field implementer call, because we are shipping NV23 next week, so we started to plan for NV24, which I believe will be the last upgrade that implementers will support for Filecoin network for the rest of the year, and we are trying to figure out, okay, what the timeline is looking like and understanding each implementation team's like resources and how many FIPS and what are the priority of the FIPS that we should be considering supporting in this upcoming upgrade. So right now, I believe we are targeting end of like October or early November for the NV24 upgrade, because we do not want to do the upgrade too late, leading to winter holidays. And if like, anything happens, we don't want to ruin the community's holidays. So as like the implementer, so we're trying to make it done by like October 30th. And scope-wise, the only thing that I see in the public quarter discussion right now being proposed is F3. And because F3 is a very complicated thing to be included, and at least for now, I believe it's the top priority for like Lotus, like Field Ops team and like Forest team to make sure that we can launch F3 secure and smoothly for the ecosystem in NV24, and that's like where we're prioritizing our resources on to make it ready. We would love to understand whether there's like any other FIPS that the community and the other folks would love to be considered to be included in this upcoming upgrade, and what they are and stuff like that. And like implementers can try to provide feedbacks on whether we can find like resources to support them and so on and so forth. And as you guys can see here, if we want to meet this timeline, we must, following our network deployment testing flow, we need like some like code freeze in September the 4th. Basically, we only have like 1 month away towards that. That doesn't give us a lot of time. So if you do have any input you want to give, please raise soon. From like Tuesday's implementer calls, it does seems like most of the implementation team already have like the engineering resource plan for the rest of the year. So just be aware that there will be limited resources to support additional requests unless they are top super urgent and high value. Alex.
Thanks. Yeah, F3 is not the only FIP that's proposed for that upgrade. At least included in that set is the fix for the circulating supply calculations effect on, the baseline functions effect on the initial pledge function, which that FIP has been out for ages. The code is basically written. We're just waiting on the actual proposal to be formal enough to go to last call itself. But that's been around for a long time.
Thank you for calling that out. I almost forgot it. And thank you, David, for helping the CEL team to do the code spec. I think the risk with like that particular FIP, which I consider somewhat relevant as a security FIP, but also crypto econ maybe FIP, is that it's still like a draft. It's not like, I don't know AX. Do you know what's like Karen's plan? Like, is that the top priority for CEL? To drive it? Like, when can we get the FIP go through the governance process?
Which one is this?
This is the baseline pledge lower bound.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I'm not in charge of that. I know like probably Kieran is, but I think they've done like some work on the implementation themselves, and yeah, I'll ask him to. I can get in touch about this. I don't really know the status.
Jennifer, as far as I know, I'd like, I don't want to put words in their mouth, and I'm grossly oversimplifying, but they see it as blocked on FIP editor, having rules that are difficult for them to follow. And basically it's on us as editors. We could let it through any time. It's just a back and forth with us until we're happy that it specifies enough, even though they've written the code. I fully believe that it's implemented or trivially close to finish implementing, probably needs some tests. There's like, it's completely specified. It's just, do we think the FIP document is doing a good enough job of that specification for third parties to read?
Cool. I think we can do a editor pass sometime soon. Thank you for flagging. Cool. Yeah. How any other products has any feedback on the NV24 like scope and timeline?
Looks good so far. Jennifer, hopefully we don't name it a seasonal, something seasonal this time. It wouldn't be like NV24 fall upgrade, no. So maybe you should start thinking about what to name it for this one.
Very important topic to decide.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you everyone so much for velocity, speedy. I love them. Keep the suggestions coming. Thank you so much everyone for joining us. See you again next month in September. Have a lovely rest of your day or evening. Bye.